I will talk quite briefly about the recent performance improvements we implemented in LINSTOR, mostly thanks to the help of the DRBD team because we needed some fancy new tools, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. But before I can get to the actual numbers, I need to very briefly explain how LINSTOR in general works. I will not go into too much detail, don't worry. As Phil already mentioned, the satellite runs mostly stateless. So when the satellite itself starts, it has no knowledge about any resources at all. Even if DRBD resources are already running, LINSTOR simply does not know about that. It needs the controller who loads the information from the database. The controller sends the information to the satellite, and now the satellite has the resources. Next, the satellite needs to make sure that these, in this case, DRBD resources, are also in the expected state. But how does this LINSTOR do this step? So this is the distinction between the before 1.32.0 and later the afterwards. Before this version, LINSTOR just run a really simple loop, generate the resource file, check the resource file if the generated one is correct, so to say, and then adjust the DRBD resource accordingly. This was unconditionally done for all resources the satellite received from the controller. This was changed in the following way. First, still all resource files are generated. That's more or less the same as before. But next we got a new tool from DRBD ADM, which is the SH list adjustable, which does the following. DRBD ADM scans all resource files available on your system, and if the configuration file differs from the actual state of the DRBD resource from within the kernel, then this command will output the resource name. So this is not a typo that this command is not expecting a parameter. It is intended to run for all existing resources. That's also the reason why LINSTOR first needs to generate all resource files. And with this command, now LINSTOR has the list of resources that needs to be adjusted, and of course only adjusts those that need adjustment. So this already reduces the number of external calls LINSTOR needs to execute quite dramatically, at least in the case where DRBD is already up and running. So if you only restart the satellite, as Phil has mentioned, DRBD will still be up and running. This is the scenario where LINSTOR will benefit most from this improvement. But to be fair, if you reboot the entire machine, no DRBD will be running. So in the end, LINSTOR has to do the very same procedure as before dispatch. And one last thing, if the adjustment was successful, so did not return any error, we just make a copy of the resource file so that we skip this config to test step from earlier. So let's talk about a few numbers. We set up a small test scenario where we had two satellites with 1,000 resources. So both satellites had those 1,000 resources. And before the current version, LINSTOR's very first cycle where it has to check if the resources are in a healthy state, it nearly took 2 minutes. So in these 2 minutes, the satellite was not really responsive. These are the more detailed causes, so to say, as highlighted the two DRBD commands. 2003 count for DRBD IDM based on what I just explained earlier, the config to test and the adjust. And the additional 3 was like DRBD ADM version or something like that. So all in all, it took quite a long time. But with the new version, the DRBDs were already up and running. So the overall time dropped significantly with, as I mentioned, only one DRBD ADM command in addition to the version checks. LINSTOR could figure out what resources to adjust, so the startup time was drastically reduced. And mostly the same thing in for the more visual kind of person. So this is, again, I just want to highlight, this is only true if you have just restarted the LINSTOR component, not DRBD itself. But if you do, the performance improvements are quite visible, so to say. And as already mentioned at the beginning, this was the very brief overview of the improvements for now. Are there any questions?
Awesome. Thank you, Gabor. Let's take a look here. All right. I'm not
Yeah.
seeing any questions come through.
RT, while we are
Yes.
waiting for questions, I want to give a few comments on that.
Yeah.
So as you see, we work here on cases with 1,000 resources, so that's 1,000 virtual volumes. So this gives you a feeling where our demanding customers are. So the clusters are getting bigger, and with bigger clusters, we have thousands of virtual volumes to take care of, plus maybe 10 times the number of that of snapshots, etc. So just I'm just stressing this to give you a feeling where our customers are that are driving the development. Sorry for that. Back to you, RT.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Phil. It's awesome. Um, yeah, I'm not seeing any come in here, so we will go ahead and wrap this up. Um, But yeah, I just wanted to also mention, we're really here talking about Vates and ExoStore and how LINSTOR and DRBD fit into that. But I also just want to say that something that people love about LINSTOR is its flexibility. So regardless of your platform, if you're out there listening, reach out because you never know what other platform you might be able to work with. And definitely reach out to the Vates team about ExoStore and LINBIT being a Vate's partner, we can, help you guys with testing and getting all set up and getting connected with the Vates team. So